back to the room of requirement. Today is the part 3 of 4 of the altar series, The Power of Surrender. So let's just go ahead and dive in. There is a subtle tension that remains even after devotion stabilizes and communion deepens. You have stopped seeking. You have built the altar. You have learned to sit in stillness without demanding spectacle. You have felt resonance replace restlessness, and yet, beneath the surface, something still grips. It is not obvious, and it doesn't shout, it whispers. It is the instinct to control. Control doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks like vigilance. It looks like hyper-awareness, and it looks like managing outcomes. It looks like ensuring spiritual progress, and it looks like subtly steering your life towards what you believe it should become. Even inside the inner temple, even before the altar, the will can attempt to direct the sacred. Surrender is not collapse, it's alignment. There's a difference between giving up and giving over. Giving up is resignation. Giving over is offering. When you surrender inside the altar, you are not abandoning responsibility. You are relinquishing the illusion that you must force coherence. You are releasing the need to manipulate timing, outcomes, and perception. Surrender is powerful because it removes internal friction. As long as control remains dominant, there is tension in the structure. The nervous system braces. The breath shortens. The mind anticipates. Even subtle control creates contraction. You may call this planning, and you may call this discernment. But beneath it is fear. And fear, if you release your grip, something will fall apart. True surrender does not dismantle structure, it refines it. Inside the altar, surrender is the final offering. You have offered restlessness, you have offered fragmentation, and you have offered inconsistency. Now you offer the need to direct everything. There is an ancient symbolism embedded in the altar. It is the place where we will meet order. The flame doesn't burn wildly. It burns steadily within boundaries. Sacred geometry does not sprawl chaotically. It aligns along precise axis. When you surrender, you are not extinguishing your will. You are aligning it with pattern. Divine order is not fatalism. It is coherence beyond individual impulse. When you surrender, you acknowledge that there is a pattern larger than your personal preference. Your path unfolds not only through your effort, but through alignment with something stable and structured beyond your grasping. Psychologically, surrender feels terrifying at first because it dissolves the illusion of control, and the ego believes that vigilance equals safety. It believes that directing outcomes prevents pain, but constant vigilance produces tension, and tension fractures communion. When you release control, something surprising happens. Your nervous system softens, your breath deepens, your perception clears. You act when action is required, but you no longer force timing. You prepare diligently, but you do not obsessively manage results. Surrender is disciplined trust. It is not passive waiting, it is active alignment. You continue your daily practice, you maintain your devotion, you tend the flame, but you stop attempting to engineer spiritual experiences. You stop measuring your growth obsessively. You stop comparing your path to others. You allow the geometry of your life to unfold according to pattern rather than panic. And this is immense strength. The will that once chased now steadies. The impulse to intervene softens. You begin to recognize when action arises naturally and when it is forced. This recognition is subtle but profound. It feels like knowing when to speak and when silence carries more authority. It feels like sensing when to move and when stillness accomplishes more than motion. Surrender does not make you weak, it makes you precise. When you stop over-directing, your actions become more aligned. When you stop forcing outcomes, your decisions become cleaner. You notice that effort becomes efficient. Energy is no longer wasted on unnecessary resistance. Inside the altar, surrender also deepens communion. As long as you are attempting to control what communion looks like, you cannot fully receive it. The sacred cannot be engineered. It can only be entered. When you surrender expectation, silence becomes more transparent. Presence becomes more accessible, and peace becomes more stable. You begin to understand that surrender is not losing power, it is relinquishing distortion. Control distorts will by tightening it. Surrender refines will by aligning it. There is a point in every mature spiritual life where the desire to control must bow. Not in humiliation, in recognition. You realize that your effort has limits, that your perception is partial, and that your timing is not always precise. And rather than panic, you offer this limitation at the altar. You do not dissolve your agency, you consecrate it. Consecration means your will remains active but not dominant. It cooperates rather than competes, and it aligns rather than overrides, and it listens as much as it directs. This is the paradox of surrender. When you release the need to control, you become more powerful, not because you dominate outcomes, but because you are no longer destabilized by them. Circumstances shift, but your structure holds. Results vary, but your peace remains. Surrender reduces anxiety because it dissolves internal conflict. And when you are constantly trying to force life into alignment with your expectations, you create great resistance. When you align your will with pattern, friction decreases and peace increases. You will know surrender is deepening when you feel less reactive to uncertainty, when plans change and your body doesn't tighten, when outcomes differ from expectation and you remain steady, when silence extends and you do not scramble to fill it. Surrender is trust in structure. It is trust that the altar holds. It is trust that devotion has not been in vain. It is trust that communion is not illusion, and it is trust that the geometry of your life is unfolding even when you can't see the full design. This trust does not eliminate responsibility. It clarifies it. You remain disciplined, you remain attentive, and you remain engaged, but you stop gripping. And when you stop gripping, the flame burns cleaner. The altar does not need force. It needs offering. And surrender is the offering that refines everything. Devotion steadied you. Communion deepened you. Surrender refined you. And in the final episode of this altar series, we will explore what emerges when all of these stabilize. Peace, not temporary calm, not emotional relief, but structural peace. The kind of peace that remains under pressure, and the kind of peace that doesn't require intensity to feel alive. We will ask a final question. When surrender becomes natural and communion is steady, what is left to pursue? And what does life look like when peace is no longer an aspiration, but a condition? Okay, you guys, thank you. That's the end of episode 3. Stay tuned for the last episode in the Altar series. I want to thank you guys for being here, and I will see you next time around. Bye.